And the members of the general public, I would like to welcome you once again to the 47th edition of our Radical New Bar live press and public engagement, brought to you live from the Uganda Law Society House. We are very elated to receive you this morning yet again, and we want to thank the Lord for thus far that we have come. I'm by the name Robert Benon Jirua. I am the Rule of Law Officer in charge of litigation as well, and would like to welcome you to this session in which we're going to have a very tight marked, action-packed 2 hours or thereabout of matters that revolve around the general elections coming forth very soon that we are all aware of, and yet we want to discuss, start conversations, and have something said about it in as far as dialogue is concerned. And today we want to also be very categoric. This live session today is very special, not because it is our final engagement, but it's also because it's coming at a very critical time as far as the elections are concerned, just before we break off into the festivities after a very long 11.5 months starting January. We are categorically saying this is going to be our last session for the year, because effective after this, we are going to be communicating mostly online, but also because we are going to be out in our different places of abode, watching, participating, and taking care of ourselves, as well as having time with our families, for those especially that are not necessarily at their places of abode. And we are here to discuss very critical discussions, especially in light of yesterday's International Human Rights Day. We were commemorating the day with partners including ACTV, the United Nations, and the Uganda Human Rights Commission, at a dialogue that was attended to by very distinguished guest speakers and general members of the public, because that is a day in which we are always supposed to recommit ourselves to equality, dignity, and justice for all. We are very proud to be a part of that, because for us it is within our mandate, and we're here to call upon the members and the general public to rally behind the general clarion call, which is our mandate in Section 3 of the Uganda Law Society Act, to ensure access to justice, but as well help the government to practice and administer justice. Today, with the 2026 general elections fast approaching, conversations are being had, especially about constitutional governance, freedom of expression, electoral justice, and the protection of the voter, as has never been the case. We have also been witnesses, I'm very sure, that have seen what is happening within the scope of elections. We have studied and watched the campaigns ongoing carried on by the different political parties. We have seen a lot happening, and we want to make sure that this conversation continues, because we have always had a hand in what happens in this nation. We've had so many stakeholders over time interacting with us, but also adding a brick to the building of constitutional governance in the country, electoral justice, and equality before the law. And we have always made sure that we pick the best as far as conversation is concerned, the experts that we have interacted with throughout the year. Today we are going to try to commemorate the International Human Rights Day, as I said before, but also see how to make a clarion call, as well as interact with members of the bar and members of the general public and experts. Our experience this year, as I will always keep to thank as well, has been to interact with different stakeholders, including the government departments and agencies, the Uganda Police Force, of course, which is one of them, with whom we always continue to engage on human rights-based policing, political parties and their legal teams, as we shall as well hear from the next speakers coming forth, media houses, as we have always been covered, and we want to thank you all, especially the media houses that are always here with us, civil society organizations that are always represented, and I will not necessarily mention them, but generally we have dealt with each of them, development partners, as well as distinguished experts, and the wider lawyers fraternity, which is the members from which we have been getting different speakers and experts who are always, of course, our committed ULS members. And of course, we cannot forget to thank the general public who have continued to follow us and trust us with delivering as much information as is required. Our partnership with you all cannot be overstated. We are more than grateful and excited to continue this journey, and we hope we shall have a better session either between today and the next year, but also to just call on us to continue to support each other in as far as the matters constitutional governance, electoral justice, and equality are concerned. Today, we want to have a brief discussion about elections, general elections, and what is happening, what questions are lingering around the minds of the public, the minds of the political parties participating, the minds of the press. What is happening? Can we hear it out, and can we make it any better? Because on the face of it, it doesn't look beautiful, and we're not going to stop at looking at it. We want to speak out. We want to make a difference from the conversations that we continue to have, and this cannot be any different in especially the people that we are having here before us, the distinguished guests who are going to come and share their insights, share their experiences, as well as allow us to ask those questions. We're going to have a brief program. We're going to have an opening prayer. We're going to have our remarks from the CEO, who is, of course, as well, not in the house, but has delegated that activity, and it's going to be a message read out by one of us in here. And thereafter, we shall delve into the first topic that will be introduced and its own speakers, of course. And thereafter, we shall have a second topic that will be discussed as well. We shall have a moment of question and answer, and after that we shall have a closure, and therefore we shall see to it that we can close this function in the next 2 hours or thereabout. Right about now, I'm going to invite Mr. Umar, who is going to bless us with a prayer to ask into the Lord's presence in this building so as to usher the day into the Lord. Mr. Umar, please approach. Thank you.
Let's humble ourselves for a word of prayer. Father Lord, we thank you for this beautiful morning. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the heads that are gathered here. May you please provide them with knowledge to speak what you want them to speak out, so that it can create change and an impact in other people's lives. We bless the day. We thank you for this presence. Just as we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, Omar. May we please receive the head of Department Rule of Law, Ms. Afra Apio, who is going to render unto us the remarks from the Chief Executive Officer of the Uganda Law Society. Thank you.
Our distinguished guests, Dr. Sarah Birete, Mr. Alan Chikwech, Mr. Robert Sempala, Mr. Elotu Jonathan, and Mr. Abdul Malik Lukwago, the ULS Governing Council members joining us online, all members of Uganda Law Society joining us both physically and online, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Apio Afra, and I'm the head rule of law, Uganda Law Society. I am representing the CEO, Ms. Christine Awori, who is unable to be with us this morning, owing to an equally important activity. My chief task this morning is to read her opening remarks verbatim, and I'll proceed to do so. Allow me begin by recalling that yesterday, 10th December 2025, the Uganda Law Society joined the global community in commemorating International Human Rights Day. Nationally, the event was graced by partners including the United Nations, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, SCTV, members of diplomatic corps, and many other stakeholders. This year's national theme, strengthening democratic space, upholding freedom of expression, speech, association, media and security of persons in 2026 general elections could not be more timely. Today, in line with the theme and aware of the critical electoral period our country is entering, we gather to reflect on the rights and freedoms that nurture and sustain Uganda's democracy. The speakers of the day will guide us through two important discussions. Topic 1, elections, constitutional governance, and civic rights in the wake of the 2026 general elections. As Uganda Law Society, our statutory mandate under Section 3 of the ULS Act requires us to protect and assist the public in all matters touching, ancillary, or incidental to the law. It is in fulfillment of this mandate that we continue to closely observe the developments shaping the country's elections. The 2026 general elections present not only a moment of opportunity, but also a test of Uganda's democratic resilience. This is a moment for our nation to affirm its commitment to constitutionalism, the rule of law, and the protection of human rights. We are not here merely to recount the challenges faced in past electoral cycles. We are here to shape a forward-looking agenda, one that ensures an open, safe, and dignified electoral environment for all persons. Democratic space thrives only when citizens are empowered to speak freely, associate freely, assemble peacefully, and participate in political processes without fear, intimidation, and violence. When these freedoms are constrained, democracy becomes fragile. When they are protected, democracy deepens. We are honored to be joined by distinguished guests who will help us reflect more deeply on these themes. Our second topic this morning is who protects the voter? Human rights at stake and erosion of electoral trust. In our ongoing observation of the countrywide campaigns, the Uganda Law Society has noted with concern several incidents that threatened public confidence in the electoral process. During the NUP campaign events in Kawempe, Mbarara, Gulu, and other areas, we documented troubling reports of supporters being beaten, tear-gassed, and subjected to arbitrary arrests. Increasingly, citizens feel unsafe attending campaign rallies, an alarming indicator of shrinking civil space and the erosion of electoral trust. These incidents are not merely political disturbances. They are human rights issues that strike at the heart of voter protection and democratic legitimacy. We are therefore equally honored to have with us today speakers who will address these concerns and help us explore practical ways to safeguard the voter and restore confidence in the electoral process. I thank all our speakers, partners, and participants for joining us today. I thank our members and the public at large for your continued dedication to joining these conversations every week. I wish you a meaningful and engaging discussion. Signed, Christine Awori, CEO, Uganda Law Society.
A little bit of a round of applause for the CEO, really. She has belabored to communicate to us in as much as she's absent. We always feel glad when we hear from you, Mama, because with you, there is a little bit of warmth in this house. And clearly, the guests are very welcome because they feel your presence. Thank you. May God bless you in your endeavors. And imagine the topic that is going to bring us to our feet. It's going to be topic number 2 because we want to use the broader perspective from topic number 1 to speak into topic number 2. We want to get an experience because this is the closest we can get to the elections. You know, we are all living in one place or another, and there is going to be, or there has already been, an elections campaign rally in your area code. And I want to imagine that when you're watching the news or following on social media on different handles, you have an experience which you don't want to see again, especially in regard to how the police has been arbitrarily arresting some of these campaign agents, campaign supporters rather, and officers that are blatantly, it's not something nice to speak about, blatantly breaking the law. We were watching in Gulu what happened. There was some crazy bit of activity by the police and scenarios were not lovely. There was plain clothes, security officers. We've seen that in the Kawempe by-election, I think media. We've seen that in Noya. We've seen that in Gulu, and we saw that very recently in Kawempe. That of course got us engaged as the Uganda Law Society, and it took an impact on us because we've had to come out because it's our mandate anyway. So we want to use this first opportunity to bring the experience closer to us as we talk into what we shall be addressing as the skeleton, and we want to use this live experience of one of the members who is on the panel that is going to help us to understand that experience, who protects the voter, we're asking ourselves, and where does the accountability lie, and how do these realities affect electoral trust? There are some members, this is off the record, who have showed us evidently that they're not going to vote because why are they going to stress themselves with coming to make a line, and yet all of a sudden there's going to be tear gas, there's going to be beating and unreasonably for no reason that is given. And the experience we're going to hear from is going to come in such a way that there was no preparation for this particular experience, because it was not that the individual was campaigning, nor was he actually in that rally. Rather, he was at his place of abode in his peace and comfort. That is not something that you want ever to happen to you. And we want to ask the individual, could you kindly share what happened to you and what it is going to mean for your continuation of the participation in the elections. But the individual we're talking about is a legal personnel who holds an honors bachelor's degree in law from Cavendish University and a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from, of course, the LDC. He is attached to Alvarez Advocates as a legal associate who assists the vice president of the Uganda Law Society in various legal activities. He has also worked with the Judicial Service Commission as a clerkship legal intern, and he's passionate about justice, community empowerment, and social welfare. He has built a career grounded in service and integrity. He is the founder of Hope for All, a Ugandan non-profit organization committed to supporting vulnerable individuals and communities through compassion-driven programs and sustainable assistance. His work reflects a deep commitment to uplifting the needy and championing equal justice to opportunities for all. He assists the needy with various basic needs, gives the hopeless hope through sharing and giving back to those who are in need through his organization. He has been sensitizing the masses that he normally engages with through his NGO about their civil rights and freedom and the role they need to play in order to see that their rights as human beings aren't derogated no matter their social status. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin and set the pace, we're going to welcome Mr. Abdul Malik Lukwago.
Good morning. Yes, by the names of Abdul Malik Lukwago. I'm a legal associate at Alvarez Advocates, and it is true, everything that he has pointed out. So I'm here to tell you about the experience that I went through. I'm just from asking him whether I have to tell the whole story, but here it is. I'm going to give it to you unfiltered. So, as I've said, I work at Alvarez Advocates. It was 24th of November that I was from work. I was with my colleague. There he is, Mr. Emma. So we were from work, from Entebbe. We drove all the way from there to Kanyanya. That's where we stay. Coming to Kanyanya, I approached Bahai Road, and I had some documents. I had to scan some documents so that I could upload on ICMIS. So here I am coming out of the car. Then I met police officers who came from nowhere. Of course, okay, there was a presence of them because there were some big cars, police cars. I parked just beside them, and I had to cross the road to go and scan my documents. Upon getting out of my car, police officers came from nowhere. They grabbed me with him. They electrocuted me plus him. We fell down. Upon falling down, we received some good kicks. Then they got us up. The good thing with him, he was putting on a shirt that was written on Legal Hub, and he was fortunate enough that one of them said, he's a lawyer, he's going to cause us problems, tumuleke. So they left him behind. Me, I had nothing on me that showed that, I'm a legal personnel. They boxed me a lot of times. I couldn't count. Then electrocuted me again, grabbed me and threw me on top of a police truck. I remember its number. It was 5369 UP. So upon falling in the truck, there was a bike. I fell on a bike. Of course, it injured me, but then I met there some 2 officers. These people, I don't know, maybe I had done something to them in the past, but I don't think. These guys, one of them slapped me. I had a tooth. I even have a gap right now. I had a tooth that had a problem, but they slapped me. That slap was very good to an extent that my tooth came out. It came out. I wanted to jump off the truck. One of them, I knew him. He's an OC station, Old Kampala. It's called Liga Francis. Liga Francis, I happen to know him because I had never approached Old Kampala police station for some legal stuff there. So that's how I got to know him. But here I am finding him on a truck. He had a baton. That man got me. Of course, by that time I was still even carrying my documents, but blood was coming out of my mouth. So Liga Francis got me, started beating me, hitting me. For some reason, he focused on my arm. He beat me to an extent that the baton broke. It was new to my eyes, but it was happening to me. The baton broke, but I couldn't even feel my arm by that time. So after doing that, of course the beating continued. I wasn't the only person in the truck. There were lots of other people. And to mention a number, we were about 37 people. We were 37. One of us was a female. I got to know her. She was a journalist from, she said she's from KS TV. So that lady got some good beating. Liga Francis used 2 batons on her. All of them were breaking. All of them were breaking. And he was beating a female. It was really bad. People were crying. People were bleeding. I'm very sure everyone that was on that truck was bleeding. Then, One of those officers, he was called Dalasonga, is it? Dalasonga. He had his name on his shirt. So Dalasonga was instructed by Liga Francis, get all their belongings, put them all together. So that's how they picked all our phones. We couldn't call anyone. We gave them all in. They took my documents. They took my phone. They took money. They took an ATM card. I don't know what they took from other people, but I'm very sure that they took their phones too. I even lost a laptop. I had a laptop with me. So it was taken too. So from there, one officer made a statement. These people are still joking. Let us tear gas them. Imagine we are in a truck. We are being beaten. Then they tear gassed us right there. It was really bad. It was suffocating. I cried. I didn't know that I could cry. I had taken long without crying, but I did cry a lot. My arm was twisted all the way from there to some place that they took us. Before I go there, there was a gentleman, I forgot his name, but he had a shirt, I had a red shirt written on Engabo ya Kyagulanyi. I think these guys read it and interpreted it like, you are the shield. Okay, let us give you. That man was beaten. That guy was beaten to an extent that he couldn't walk. He couldn't sit. He was sleeping all the way. Those people drove us from Bahai Road and they took us to Mulago. I happened to have known that they had taken us to Mulago. That was like 2 days after us being delivered to Mulago. We were taken to Mulago, and all this time I didn't know that Mulago had a police station, but it did, and they have a basement. So they took us in a basement. Of course, you don't just enter the basement. You enter the basement with a beating. They don't care whether you are bleeding, whether your arm is broken. They were beating everyone. So in those cells in the basement, we happened to have found a lot of other people. A lot of people were there. So these people had been brought just before us. We entered a cell. We spent the first day there. The second day, of course, with no food. They do not provide food when they put you there. The only thing they tell you is drink some water. And that water happens to be in a toilet. There is a tap in a toilet. Toilet doesn't have a door. You are imprisoned there. So you are basically supposed to just go and put your palm on that tap, then drink from it. That's what happened for 2 days. We were not eating. We were not allowed to call anybody. So he told me that what happened after I was taken, he called VP, he called some other people, plus informing my parents. Of course, they started looking for me. They looked for me everywhere in Kampala, at every police station. I wasn't there. They didn't know that there was a police in Mulago, but information reached them that there was a police in Mulago, and they instructed them to come and see me. VP instructed them to come and see me. So they came and saw me. I don't know, the other people, I don't know how their parents got to know that they were there, or their people. I don't know how they got to know, but all of them were young people, which looked like they had parents, of course. So that's when they came, saw me, and these people, when they got to realize that, a lot of people were approaching, they decided to now report that whole thing to police. They were the police, but they reported it to police. We made statements. They brought a police sergeant. We made statements. The detective that was working on me was suggesting that they leave me. He was also making the same assertions that they should leave me because I'll cause them problems. But his supervisor told him she has orders from above, and they couldn't let me go. That's how I was taken to Kawempe Chief Magistrate's Court. I happened to have got bond that same day, but the other people had to go to Luzira. I don't know what has happened to them up to now, but I believe they're okay. However, I want to make it clear that everyone was beaten. Either they broke an arm or a leg, and for myself, I went through a lot. I still have a lot of complications up to now. In that I don't, when I go to pee, it's blood. I don't know what they did to me. I went to the hospital, of course, but I think I'm supposed now to seek medical attention, maybe out of the country, but they can't treat me. I don't know what has happened to other people, but I think they're also going through the same. Yeah, that's my story. Sorry for cutting it short. I know I've not said a lot of things. Time cannot allow, but yes, that's what happened to me. Thank you.
I don't know where to start. Should we give him a hand clap? Should we remove a handkerchief and clear a tear out of your eye or in your heart? What should we do? A very, very bad place to be. A lawyer, having identified himself. One of the panelists here normally tweets and says, police kozetia. And we wonder whether, I think we know that person, and we shall hear from that person as well, because these leave you dumbfounded, they leave you jaw low and wondering whether we are in a country that we indeed belong to as citizens who deserve the best. Thank you so much, Malik. It's not something that we can be proud of, but in reality, we must be going through these things. Yesterday's dialogue was begging the question, who polices the police? Who now protects the voter? And the experience is untold of. We have continued as a check and balance to require that the police and of course the army notify of where the detention centers are. If you're here to be told Mulago police station has a basement, I bet all of you will be surprised unless you go through the experience. So we are here to have these honest conversations. I want us to take heart, listen in, and use that experience to make this discussion more fruitful and beneficial. Malik has intimated a very detailed, critical story. Of course, he hasn't revolved everything. We might not listen into everything, but you can clearly see he has a broken arm. I was privileged to see the X-ray report. There is a break in that hand that is curing. As he has said, some of the things that were done cannot be treated in Uganda. He is currently processing documentation to seek further medical assistance from out of the country. It's not something nice. We recently were here. We hardly bring victims to tell their story, because many a time it breaks your heart. But we are forced, because if we don't, then their stories might never be heard. And that is our role, and as an organization, it's our duty. His experience is going to lead us to the next speaker, who is going to help us to understand the transpirations of what happened thereafter. But maybe for you to know, the Uganda Law Society was approached because, as has been said, the Vice President got wind of the information and of what had transpired, and very fast, in a very rapid response kind of way, engaged the society and staff, including, of course, myself. We undertook to locate Malik. We sent a team of different legal aid lawyers to different stations, to Mulago Police Station, to Wandegeya Police Station, Kawempe, Kanyanya, and of course we are going to begin to apply for unconditional release. But also, as he has said, when the police hears that you are taking some legal action, they straight away act. And that led us to Kawempe Chief Magistrate's Court, in which we were met by another team of the members that he has said that were very unsuspecting, 37 suspects that were arrested and arraigned to court. But we want to use the next opportunity to listen into the next story from an advocate of the courts of judicature. He is the Secretary for Legal Affairs at NUP, the head legal department at NUP. He has been a part of some very strong Supreme Court cases, like that of Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert versus Museveni and the Electoral Commission, as well as the Attorney General versus Kabaziruguka. And he has also been a part of the team of Alan Sewanyana, Honorable Alan Sewanyana, and of course the late Segirinya in their pursuit for freedom, a story that we all remember, as well as being part of over 15 election petitions alike, which means, of course, he has an experience in what we are discussing. He has been a part of one of them, including Lydia Wanyoto, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto versus Connie Galuwango in Mbale. And of course, in that case, we shall hear further, they beat the vice chair of the Eastern region in that regard, and very many other cases. He's an alumni of Makerere University, and he's here to give us an experience of the transpirations after Malik and co were taken in, and what happened, for us to appreciate the things that are happening behind the doors and things that we might not necessarily be knowledgeable of. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Mr. Elotu Jonathan.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I thank you, the ULS, for having me here. It's been a while since we had someone from NUP actually coming to the ULS to have these R&B engagements. But the story of Malik is not a new story to us at NUP. We have had the same stories told over and over again. We have had the same type of I could say mechanics used by the state to intimidate, to beat up our supporters. What I can say is that elections in Uganda did not start in 2021. Elections in Uganda started in 1980. We had others coming up after 1980. These are elections that I believe have had something to change with the country. So the elections from 1980 to the ones of 2001 to the ones of 2006, 2016, and 2021. These are the most profound elections that we have had as a country. In the 2001 and 2006 elections, we had basically a challenge, the elections of the incumbent currently, and we all read those cases. We all read what the court of the Supreme Court said in both those cases. It said that yes, there was non-compliance with the electoral laws, there was intimidation of voters, there was voter bribery. However, it is not substantial to change the results of the elections. However, one main point that court looked at, and both courts said in those cases, was that the Electoral Commission was incompetent. The Electoral Commission was unable to hold a better election in the country. That is why in 2016, there were reforms that were given by the Supreme Court to the Electoral Commission, and these reforms up to date have not been actually tabled before Parliament and have not been passed. In addition to that, going back to the main topic, we have seen that state repression is currently being targeted at the National Unity Platform. From the word go, we have seen that state resources, state apparatus, several recruitments of the military together with the police is done basically to hit at the National Unity Platform. We have seen from the word go, from Natete, when Honorable Robert Chagulanyi became the NUB candidate, we saw how police arrested over 37 members from Natete. Over 37 were arrested and they were all taken to Mwanga 2 court. From the Mwanga 2 court, we had about 20 of them who were charged with public nuisance. All these matters, all these cases, we have lawyers as the state attorneys. But lawyers, when they receive cases that are coming from the NUP, when they receive someone who is coming, just like Malik, when they receive someone who is coming from maybe a campaign rally of the National Unity Platform candidate, the only thought they have is that this person must have committed this offense. This person is arrested. This person's offenses are taken before the Director of Public Prosecution, that's the state attorney, and the state attorney proceeds to sanction all of these matters. I have appeared in several matters. What happens is that at the end of all of it, 2 weeks, 3 weeks you have spent behind bars. At the end of it, the state will not produce any witnesses. At the end of it, we shall find that the matter is going to be dismissed for want of prosecution. This is not the only case. Almost all cases, word to word. You arrest someone, take them to court. From court, state will insist they do not have time to look through the documents, the bail documents of the accused person. So what do? Of course, you're remanded. After being remanded, you're brought back. Maybe the next day you're lucky to get bail. When you get bail, state loses interest in cases. I can assure you we have had Honorable Chagulanyi being charged with treason. All those cases, provided after he got bail, all these cases died. And this is not only on Honorable Chagulanyi. There are others apart from that. There are others who have been arrested, and after the arrest, after production in court, the matters die. And at all times, court dismisses the matters for want of prosecution. So in answer to the question on whether the Electoral Commission is going to give us a fair election next year, I do not think so. I do not think they have the capacity to do that. I think they're incompetent. I think they see all the human rights violations that are happening in the country, and I think they're silent on it. Their silence is not because they're unable to do something about it. Their silence is because they are controlled by the state. Their silence is because the state is the one that decides what happens. Basically, what we are doing is trying to sensitize Ugandans to go and vote, to have the protest vote. But as you have seen, it seems we're in a war with the state. I would believe that even if we're in a war with the state, the Geneva Conventions would of course assist us. But you have seen how the state arrests, intimidates, does all these sort of things, and The Electoral Commission that is supposed to manage it is silent on it. It has done nothing. It has not even uttered a word on members of the national of the NRM going around beating members of the National Unity Platform. We saw in Mbarara that members of the NRM goons that were employed by the NRM candidates came and started beating up some of our members. We saw how police, instead of arresting them, came and surrounded members of the National Unity Platform together with the president and arrested over 89 people. Those 89 people were taken to Mbarara. From Mbarara. They were divided in several places. We had about 3 people were taken to Mayuge and were charged with aggravated robbery. We had about 57 of them stayed at Mbarara and were charged with obstruction of a police officer in lawful duties. And what amuses is that this obstruction, the police said that they were arresting members of the National Unity Platform because they had committed offenses in several places around the country, places that the Honorable Chagulanyi had actually visited during his campaign trail. But when these people were being arrested, they were not being arrested for having, committed offenses in any of these areas. They were saying they had obstructed the police officer in the execution of his duties. At what stage did they obstruct the police officer? At the stage of being arrested. So it does not make common sense that someone is, you say you're tailing someone to arrest them, and then the offense that you want to arrest them is an offense that has just occurred at that stage. About 5 of those people, some of them were taken to Abim, and in Abim they were also charged with assault. They said that they assaulted. One of the people they assaulted was a Giso. They said that they assaulted a Giso. Of course, when you assault a Giso, and to bring offenses of people assaulting someone like a Giso, these clearly show that these are politically motivated cases. Why would a Giso attend a political rally of the National Unity Platform candidate? And the evidence that they're going to show in a court clearly shows that there was no assault on this person. You'd look at them, they do not even have any bandages on themselves. At least we have seen that Malik at least has something to show for it. But these are people who do not have anything to show that they were either assaulted, either beaten up, and even if these offenses happened, some of these people may be engaged in fights with their colleagues. But because the National Unity Platform candidate is in the area, they pick all those offenses and say, okay, let us charge members of the National Unity Platform with these offenses. In Lira, we had 12 people who were charged. The 12, they allegedly charged with theft, saying that they stole fuel from a police truck, which makes no sense. I do not understand how 12 people, 2 women, would go to a police truck and steal fuel worth 2 million shillings. In conclusion, I could just give a recap of all the cases that we have handled as a national platform. These are cases that have started from the campaign trail up to today, because we have several cases that we have been handling, several people who have been arrested from the campaign trail up to today. Of course, this does not mean we have not had other cases that have been ongoing. We have had cases that are ongoing, and we have had cases, for example, the one of Waiswa Mufumbiro, who was arrested at court and then charged with being part of a parade. We have had the Eddie Mutwe's case, where the Eddie Mutwe was picked up from Mukono. From Mukono, he was taken into a safe house. I don't know where the safe house is, but he was taken into a safe house. I know all places of detention are supposed to be gazetted. In the safe house, they blasted music the whole time he was there. He was unable to hear what his perpetrators were telling him. They blasted music the whole time he was there. He was put in a room and waterbogged. In the room, he was chained, and at certain times, he was actually chained while his legs were up. They tied his legs and had it up, and would cane him every day. At about 1 p.m., they would bring for him food and insist that he eat the food. Of course, during one of those meetings he had at the safe house, he managed to meet the CDF, who came and spoke to him, asking him, "You think you're powerful? Where is Honorable Chagulanyi right now to save you?" And this is not only him. At least his story has maybe come out, but several other members. The tactic is, you're picked up, your phones are taken from you, you're driven while your eyes are covered. Driven while eyes are covered, you cannot see who is going to beat you, you do not even know where you are. You wake up, find yourself maybe in a safe house. Most of the times it's at CMI headquarters, Mbuya. Find yourself in Mbuya. From Mbuya, they start asking you questions. They start asking you, who is Honorable Robert Chagulanyi? Open up your phone. We want to see what is in your phone. They open up your phone. They start looking at contact by contact and asking you questions on each and every person. They even open your WhatsApp messages and start asking you, who is this person? How do you know this person? What do you do with this person? And if you manage, or if you happen to have photographs of the National Unity Platform candidate, your case is different. We as lawyers, we try our best to get bail. We have tried so many times to get bail. And of course, to apply for habeas corpus for most of these people who have been picked up. But even at situations or scenarios where we try to do this, we have court that sometimes tells you, as you've had, as we recently saw in the case of the two Kenyans, that you cannot squeeze a rock out of a stone. I mean, you cannot squeeze water or blood out of a stone. So we have had these situations. It goes back to the same thing I was saying. It feels like we're in a war. A war with a system. A war with the state. And I must confess, ULS has not done so much to assist us. That's what I must confess. ULS has not done so much to assist us. Recently in Kawempe, we had about 89 people who have been arrested. These 89, most of them were picked up from the rally of Honorable Robert Chagulanyi. And they were squeezed in the police post. Mr. Malik was squeezed in. Squeezed there, 37 were brought to court in the morning. Another 25 were brought to court later on. We have tried to get for them bail, but everyone is crying. We're beaten up. We're beaten up. We have not committed any offenses. Most of us were found walking back home. How is walking back home an offense? And this was repeated in Iganga, because most times we forget that Iganga also had the same thing. This was repeated in Iganga. We had 17 people arrested from Iganga. And about 13 of them are still behind bars to date. We saw that one of the people, one of the children, died in that election, in that campaign. That is Mr. Chokelo. He was shot in the head. Not the stomach, not the legs, he was shot in the head. We also saw videos of police officers and military men jumping out of that trucks and starting to shoot. We saw those videos. What has the Electoral Commission said about this? What has the police said about this? The only thing they're doing, blame NUP for these things. Recently, they said processions are not supposed to be, the National Unity Platform candidate is not supposed to hold processions. But we always ask, under what law? Under what law are you stopping this? The best they do is to tell us, you're not allowed to do this. But Uganda is a country that has laws. Under what laws are they using to stop us from doing most of these things? Quote the laws. Say you're stopping us from doing this under the Public Order Management Act. Let us understand that the law says this. Not military men coming on TV, not police officers coming on TV and assuring us that we are not allowed to do certain things. I have personally read the laws. I have not seen any law stopping us from having processions, which we don't have. The candidate is popular. We all know this. The candidate is popular. People want to see him. So the people who want to see him, are they all supposed to be arrested? Are we supposed to be arrested for being curious? We're not. And it is a campaign. We saw that in Gulu. Our candidate was battered. We saw sudden magic, blood pouring from his head. What has police said about it? Nothing. What has the Electoral Commission said about it? Nothing. So, are we still being protected? Are voters going to be protected? Let's look at cases of defacement. Recently, about 5 NUP members, whose matter is coming up tomorrow, were arrested for defacement, allegedly defacing the pictures of Museveni and his other candidates. But no one saw these people. They were just called to the police station and told, come and answer charges at the police station. They reached the police station and are charged with defacement. Just because they believe these are popular candidates. Because most of the people who are being arrested, some of them are members of the National Unity Platform who are standing for these positions, for certain electoral positions. So they are arrested and charged with defacement. The intention is to have people behind bars, actually to release the people after the elections are done. That is the intention. That is why we have over 200 people in jail as the National Unity Platform. And you hear stories. Today you go to court, you're told, no, the magistrate is not around. Come back the next day. This is happening in Chiruhura. Then you go back the next day, the state attorney is not around. They're telling you, no, you come back on the next day. And we're all seeing that Christmas is fast approaching. And no one is going to work on Christmas. I believe so. Judicial officers will not work on Christmas. State attorneys will not work on Christmas. The intention is to have these people behind bars until the elections are done. So as voters, because these are potential voters, who is protecting them? Is it the Electoral Commission? The answer is no. I conclude by saying, there is a saying by I think it is a pastor, Pastor Martin. These are words of Pastor Martin. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak because I was not a communist. And then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak because I'm not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak because I am not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. I call on the Uganda Law Society. I call on all advocates out there. This is not a fight for the National Unity Platform. This is a fight for justice now. Anyone who is able to, if you believe an injustice is being committed, lend a hand. Even as a surety, come and be a surety. As an advocate, come and be an advocate. Come and represent these our members. If you are at court on that day, come and represent. You do not need to wait for the call. Because today, it's our supporters. It's us today. Tomorrow it could be you. And we need to be there for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for your insights and your account. Of course, in representation of the NUP, that for obvious reasons is in the limelight because, as he has said, their candidate is popular and, of course, followed after. Of course, there are so many other candidates who are followed after, and all of them have campaign rallies, but we have always had a problem when it comes to the NUP being mentioned. It is very unfortunate what he has shared in regard to the predicament before us as the public, but also as a party and the legal department. Therefore, the selective justice that is being orchestrated by the state attorneys is quite a shame. From his account, of course, we are only told that it is very, very bad that there's going to be a dismissal for want of prosecution, and yet at the time that you were taking the person, you did not give the person the audience and maybe also do further investigations, which is very unfortunate indeed. Files being sanctioned, as we have seen, the judges are already judging before hearing. You know, they say we listen but we don't judge, but here we are being seen and being judged immediately, and of course that doesn't shed light on in the tunnel that we are still going through. State-controlled organs, of course, is being said to be the order of the day, in which, you know, departments are being run by the state, like the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be fully independent. Like in the recent time when they renamed it, it was renamed from the Electoral Commission to the Independent Electoral Commission. And we're wondering, indeed, is it independent if it's not going to speak out on matters that are very disturbing and yet under their watch and guide? We are asking those same questions. Who protects the voter? Are we indeed at war with the state? Is the question that we citizens are asking, because if we are going to keep moving places and we are being barred by the police themselves that are supposed to protect law and order, how feasible is it for us to understand that 89 suspects were distributed differently through Mbarara and Western Uganda? How is it possible that there is safe houses that are blasting music? We celebrating people's suffering? Is it something that we want to ask again and ask who is the question? We being chained and detained while legs are being tied, even when you are in custody. You know, how are we going to understand that? How are we eating food by force? I thought it's my right to eat food if I want, and if I don't, I can stay without it. Are my privacy rights being upheld? Can you access my WhatsApp phone without a court order? Are you going to take my phone and use it to get information and find a picture of my candidate? For example, if I support the NRM, let us assume, and you find the president's, of course, his picture, does that make me guilty in that way? And of course, a very critical aspect that touches our soul in as far as the assistance rendered to these suspects is concerned, in crying out about the Uganda Law Society. Maybe for Jonathan to know, and it's very important, we respect and receive constructive criticism. We want to hear you out. That's the reason we are here. So we receive the criticism, but also we need to inform you that we have a rapid response unit that has just been calling out for the past 1 month. On every show like this, we have been calling out to all advocates who are willing to offer pro bono services to get in touch with us. I am actually the contact person. In that statement that we wrote out, I am the contact person. My telephone contacts were written out there, and indeed I have received calls from the lawyers. We are slowly building a rapid response team, because as you said, we are going out for Christmas and the festivities. There's a very high chance we're all going to disassociate with the society for that purpose. As far as work is concerned, we are going to our homes, our villages. We're building a team that is ready to offer pro bono legal services across the country, in as far as going to maybe apply for bail is concerned, going out to apply for police bond where there has been arrests for that matter, and we are going to be working, this is a call once again, we are going to be working with the different ULS legal aid clinics across the country. There are 22. I am the contact person, but we are going to be working with the different senior legal officers of the different legal aid clinics. So that call is received. We were recently with the people you're talking about in Kawempe. I must also humbly deny your cry, because I was personally in Kawempe with Mr. Obadiah. We relieved 37 suspects out on bail. Jonathan, we were together, I think, one of those days. I think Wednesday or Thursday, on the 8th day. That's what I'm saying. Barara, we are saying these situations come in as time goes by. In Barara, we got communication from the team at the legal aid clinic. We sent out members. We are building a team. It's work in progress. We are not going to say that we currently have a team, because you are the most concerned. It is your party. You have the information with you. It is for you to reach out to us to gauge whether we're able to help you. Now, that said, it is a collective effort, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not necessarily point out. I know next time it's NUP. Some years ago it was FDC. Are we aware? Yes, we are. So the question is, how do we help each other? And that is going to lead us into the next question, the next topic, which of course is going to be shared by very distinguished guests who are in here. And we don't want to leave it at that, where Jonathan has stopped. Jonathan has cried. There's 200 inmates in jail. That is not a nice number. That's cynical. We can't afford to have that information with us and sit on it. And the next question now, of course, is going to help us to address the wider perspective of these issues. Freedom of press, freedom of association, of course, in the Bill of Rights. This is what we are tackling, and we're asking ourselves, really, how are we going to help each other? And of course, we want to identify with the members that are here before us, because each of them has distinguished information, distinguished strengths for that matter, and we're going to have to listen in to each of them and see to what extent has the civil society come out to address the civic space that is being plundered upon and being smollened over time, because people are now fearing to go to vote. People are fearing to go to attend campaign rallies, and we're asking ourselves, is that the right thing to do? And how are we going to rally people to continue to believe that we are simply trying to ask us to come out together? So what we want to do right now is delve into an aspect of civic rights, okay? The Bill of Rights, the Constitution, constitutional governance, electoral justice, okay? And we're asking ourselves, can the people that are before us here at least move something? Can you be heard? Can you be said to have caused at least a brick to be built unto the democratic governance we are looking up to? And today we're going to start with the managing editor of Nation Media Group, who of course has a story to tell in light of his employer that was recently in the news. Still about the same discussion. We're not going to delve any further away from our discussion. We want to continue to bring to the fore about the things that are happening that we want to speak about. And this individual has worked at Monitor Publications Limited since May 2011, a whopping 14 years. That is quite some load of experience, of course, which comes with his Bachelor of Languages and Literature in English Education from Chambogo University. And of course, being in the media, he is able to give us a tale of how it has been and what it was from 2011, where we had elections, and all the other elections that have been ongoing. So I want to request us to together welcome Mr. Alan Chekwech, who is going to help us to appreciate the next topic and then delve into the next speakers after that. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alan Chekwech. You're welcome, please.
Thank you. I'm very glad this afternoon to be here with my colleagues here, Dr. Sarah Birete, my longtime friend, Robert Sempala, and just listening to Jonathan Odur and Malik there evokes some memories, because we have covered the stories as Nation Media Group. And because this is a pro bono event, allow me first to do the marketing. The Nation Media Group, ladies and gentlemen, is the mother company for the Daily Monitor, NTV, Spark, Dembe FM, KFM, and all those digital platforms. So many times, when you say Nation Media Group, many people get lost, maybe when you are across in Nairobi. But we are domiciled in the East African region, and by large, the rest of Africa. So when you go to Tanzania, you'll find Nation Media Group there. Many of you might know Mwananchi Communications. When you go to Nairobi, you'll find Nation Media Group there. You know, Daily Nation, you know, NTV Kenya, and all its affiliate platforms. So he had introduced me. I've been in the media for 14 years, and I came into the media as a young man from university, wet behind the ears, and thrown into the deep end of subbing the news. And it was just after the 2011 election, and you can imagine the things that we came into there. There was the walk to our protests and stuff. So it was baptism by fire, no? And things have been snowballing since then. I have gone back to school a few times to do a master's in media leadership, or rather a master's in journalism and media studies, and then also gone back to do an executive master's in media leadership and innovation. Allow me address a few things this afternoon in terms of the topic at hand, the civic rights, the electoral rights, and also the media's role in all this. First is, maybe before I delve into the media, I first come back to you, the voters and the audiences, that first, there are rights that are granted to us by the Constitution, okay? And far as the election is concerned. One is that all of us deserve a free and fair election. I think we agree with that. All of us must take part in the electoral process. In fact, you are allowed, it's your civic duty, it's your right to take part in the election, in the electoral process. And you should have interest in that. Not so? And also, in tandem with that, is that you have rights as a voter. You have rights to access certain information from government. You have the rights to go and vote. I don't think ULS will hold you here and not allow you to go and vote on voting day. You should be able to participate. And I don't think they will guide you on which candidate to vote and which candidate not to vote for. I know Jonathan there might have his own orientation in terms of the candidates that you want to vote, but that is his right. The fact that I'm seated next to him does not mean I'll vote for his candidate or not. So all of us have those rights to express ourselves. But allow me bring this down to the realm of the media. Many of us here are aware that the media has certain roles. One of those is to inform and to educate. At the Nation Media Group, we use what we call the user needs model, okay? What are those stories that you want, that inspire you? What are those stories that educate you? What are those stories that inform you? And what are those stories that inspire? Okay? So our role is to inform and educate you, both in terms of the electoral process, on your rights, and everything in between. But also, at the heart of the Nation Media Group, ladies and gentlemen, is we have very clear tenets in terms of human rights, okay? Telling the truth. In fact, if there is anything else that we do, or if there is one thing that you want the public to know that we do, it is telling the truth first. And I think that is why we still have our lights on, okay? And in telling the truth, we're informing you, we're educating. And it is our civic duty to cover every other candidate in this election. And when we are covering them, we just tell the truth. We are very objective, and we try to analyze, okay, and look at the aspects that these candidates are trying to sell to the members of the public. And if you've been very attentive, you must have seen that we have what we call the fact checker, and every candidate is subjected to this. The mandate that you're selling, or rather the manifesto that you're selling to your candidates, has to be interrogated, and we do what we call fact checkers. That should be able to help the public know that a candidate A or B is overselling that idea, or it also helps the candidate to check themselves and see that the idea that I'm trying to sell to the electorate either is overambitious or needs to be toned down. In that process, we also try to hold those in power account. Whether it is the use of public money, whether it's the abuse of people's rights, whether it's the excessive use of force by the security officials, whether it is just denial of information by Electoral Commission or anything else, our right as the media is to hold those in power to account. In the past week, for example, you must have seen that as the Nation Media Group, we've been very intentional in fighting for the rights of Ugandans. You have seen that we have been very equivocal, we've been very vocal on writing against brutality. Yesterday's newspaper, for example, had its splash on holding the security forces to account for the state of brutality in the electoral process. Next to that is that we provide also a platform for all candidates. This morning, of course, there have been some complaints that some candidates get more airtime, or some parties are given a higher platform than the rest. But at the Nation Media Group, we take that feedback and ensure that our programming, our editorial planning, and everything takes care of all those candidates. So we provide equal platform across the radio, the digital platforms, the TVs, the newspaper. But while we are doing that, there have been a lot of challenges. And I think the challenges overshadow everything else that we try to do, everything else that is good. And I think someone alluded to the fact that our media house has been in the news. So we are the newsmakers ourselves, but we've been also in the news for the wrong reasons, but the right for the right work, but for the wrong reasons, because we're doing the right work, but someone else thinks that should not be done. So all the things I've been telling you about informing, educating you, giving you a level playing field, and holding those in power to account, in many ways, or rather in many ways than one, has led to what you actually alluded to in terms of us being in the news. As you can see, about 1 month ago, the Nation Media Group was asked not to step in Parliament And I think we took exception with that. You might have seen our editorial coverage on this. And we think that these are public entities, and the members of the public deserve to know what is happening in those spaces. And we shall fight to the very end to ensure that media freedom is, first of all, protected and respected. We will ensure that we do that what is required of us professionally, and I think we are a very professional media house. If there is anything that happens in the media, in the Nation Media Group, it's professionalism. There is no day that anyone has come to tell editors that we think we need to take this direction, we need to support this person, we need to hold just one person to account. No. When we sit as editors, we think of what is right and what has been done wrong and needs to be corrected. So the beauty with working at NMG is that you have a lot of freedom in making the right decisions. You have a lot of freedom in doing the right thing. And that alone has earned us a considerable number of perceived enemies, even when we're doing just the right thing. So in tandem with that, you've seen that, and that actually what you alluded to in terms of us not covering Parliament is an element of censorship. So you're trying to censor the media. You're trying to tell us that you're not supposed to cover place A or place B. But these are public institutions, and they should account to the public. We should go to those institutions and report so that people know exactly what is happening. Secondly, there's been a lot of elements in terms of regulation and licensing. There have been threats many times to the media generally, not just to the Nation Media Group, on aspects of licensing, that if you don't do certain things, you risk being deregistered or delicensed. And these are some of the dangers that the media is facing. If you hold those hold those in power to account, many times they come through issues to do with the regulation and licensing to arm twist you or to gag you. But we have to stay the cause in terms of fighting for the rights of the media. The other aspect, ladies and gentlemen, is that, and that actually should have been the first point, picking from Odur and Malik. If you look at the events this year alone, okay, say from March 2025 in Kawempe, the NMG was the biggest recipient of brutality. Our journalists were targeted, beaten, and the equipment confiscated and damaged. Okay, and those events in Kawempe have spiraled into many other events over the months. The fact that we are not even, and it has not been made official, but you may know that it's been difficult for the Nation Media Group to cover events where the president has been a guest or has been present. We do not know the reasons yet. Maybe we'll get them, but it's quite disturbing that we are unable to freely cover institutions that we think are public. And until we get those answers, we will continue doing our thing, we will continue doing our journalism, but we hope that those that hold those positions should be able to reflect and see the role that the media does. In fact, if you don't have someone in your life who is telling you that what you're doing is wrong, then you're going to walk into a cliff edge and no one will tell you. But you need someone who checks you. And our role is to check, okay, to play that oversight role, to hold those in power to account. And we should just appreciate that media has to do that role perfectly. And we should give them the space and legroom to do that work, okay? And we're also mindful that we operate within the profession. We have editorial policies, we have rules and regulations, and we are very conversant with this. And if we're not following this, then you will see that every single day we're overstepping our mandate. But we follow these tenets, especially at the Nation Media Group. There are things that we can do and there are things that we cannot do that are specified within the editorial policies and the general journalistic ethics code of conduct. The third thing, before I go to the third thing, the brutality that has been happening. The Kawempe North by-election was just a precursor to the things that have been happening across the country. And even when the election had been peaceful until last month in Barara, we've seen now that the brutality has returned full swing in the electoral process. But our work is to do that which is just, is to fight for to fight for human rights and also journalistic rights. Because when members of the public are being brutalized, journalists will also be beaten, because many people do not want those stories to be reported. But we will do it diligently, and we will do it until a time that everyone understands that we mean well. And I think everyone should know that the Nation Media means well when we hold those in power to account. It's because we work for the public, and those offices are for the public. The last element that I need to look at here before I give the floor to my colleagues is the issue of misinformation and disinformation. As we go out there, I think this election is one of those that has a lot of elements of misinformation and disinformation. So every time you see a video, every time you see a photograph, every time you even see a statement, either press statement or any story, you need to check. And in the newsroom, we have a lot of tools, we have a lot of checks to ensure that we're not falling victims of misinformation and disinformation. But also those elements of disinformation and misinformation are a danger to our rights, because what information do you think has been given to other people about you, or about your media house, that may not necessarily be true? And I did not hear the reason as to why you were beaten. Maybe I missed it, but maybe someone had misinformation, or maybe someone had false information. Okay? So those elements are the danger to our civic rights, misinformation and disinformation. And as a media, we need to help the public to distill the right information, to sift the chaff from the wheat, to ensure that the information being given out there is the right one, is the truthful one. And this element that we're talking about, this elephant, we're talking about human rights, is a big thing. Okay, it manifests, and human rights abuses are manifest in several aspects. It may not just be that you're beaten. Sometimes it can be that someone is just prying on your phone, that someone has actually stolen your phone and mined your data, that someone is actually trailing you, which happens to many journalists, and it can be psychological. Okay, might be the messages that they send to you, and it might be anything else. As a media, we try as much as possible to do the information, as I told you at first, that the information we give you, we ensure that it has been verified, we ensure that it has been sieved and distilled and fit for public consumption, and without any nuances that make it untrue or unprofessional. So we remain professional, we remain truthful, and we remain to fight for the rights of every Ugandan. We have a lot of challenges, as I've told you before, that range from censorship or presumed to insecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to end there, but let you know that at the Nation Media Group, all these issues notwithstanding, we ensure to do a lot of good journalism, we ensure to do the right thing, and to fight for the rights of all Ugandans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alan Chekwech, for bringing forward to the public what happens in the newsroom. Now we have a media house that is in the trenches, the media house that has become a perceived enemy, a media house that is being censored, a media house that is being stopped from covering presidential activities, which of course leaves a lot to be desired. We have realized, of course, sometimes we don't know, but yes, the media house does so much because they bring forth the information that we want, and they're the newsmakers. But if we're having the newsmakers making the news, then it means there's something that is not happening right. So this has been an experience from a newsroom person, a practitioner with 14 years of experience that has brought forth the things that they go through in trying to make the news. But this time around, of course, we are seeing censorship, we are seeing being in the news for the wrong reasons, but for doing the right work. And we're asking ourselves the same question. We have left the voters, who is protecting the voters, but we're now also asking ourselves, how can the media be protected in as far as the freedoms and the human rights can be concerned? And this is a big elephant in the room that we cannot avoid. We have to speak into these things so that these people are given the freedom, as he has said, the insecurity they are going through, and sieving the chaff from the wheat, as it is written in the book of Psalms 1 in the Bible. We are trying to pick out the best as we try to practice our different professions. And we have left the newsroom. We're now moving to the people that fight for the journalists, because at the end of the day, it is all journalism. It is freedom of press, freedom of expression, freedom of association, and exactly what we are looking at how the civil society and the different organizations are helping the media houses in their various capacities to be found to be relevant to the development of the country in as far as constitutional governance is concerned. We have a very good friend in the house who has associated with us, has banged some tables, and is proud of what he says he does, who is going to help us to delve into that topic in as far as constitutional governance, electoral justice is concerned, and how the media has been affected and how they are trying to do as much as possible to help the media to have some freedom. We are going to be listening in to the Executive Director of Human Rights Network for Journalists, who is a social justice advocate and the winner of the European Union Human Rights Defenders Award in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me our very dear friend, Mr. Sempala Robert.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My namesake, Robert. Last time we were here, we were about 5 Roberts. Yes. So you know which names to look out for those of you that still have a chance, the Roberts. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Robert Sempala. I work with the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda. I also happen to head the board of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. And it's extremely important that we are here to talk about issues that have obtained at the moment since we started these campaigns. And the key questions of the day are very, very dear to all of us, as we are on the panel here. Dr. Sarah Birete, the last time we were with her here, she has turned out many other times, I know, but there is a time when we signed a memorandum to end electoral violence. And there was a total commitment from the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Honorable Norbert Mao, then. But she did something more spectacular from us, that she even wrote a missive, a handwritten cheat to the president. And Honorable Mao said he would deliver it physically to him, so he would answer her on the key questions of the day. I do not know if she has gotten a response to date, and if yes, what has he said to that end? Because it's very important that we hear from such people who choose to go away and don't come to these spaces. I would really invite ULS to one time invite him to equally give his opinions on the things we are grappling with here. Maybe he could also scratch his head as we do a lot of times. Having heard from Hakim, from Jonathan, Marik, Jonathan, Alan, I have no doubt that things are not okay. I think it should be our admission, but things are not okay. We, at the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda, defend freedom of expression and rights of Ugandans. We just came out of the international celebrations for the Human Rights Day, and it brought to the fore how dear rights are to all of us. They are not a luxury, but essential to all of us. Through them, we get to speak, we learn, we associate, we assemble, we hold opinions, and do so much. But also to assert the fact that they are not given to us as favors, but they are inherent rights, which must be restricted under very clear circumstances in a free and just society, democratically. And what the colleagues have shared here points to a fact that some people think they give us those rights and so can take them away at will. They can beat you until the batons get shattered. They can pepper spray you, deny you your right to food, and charge you as they wish, and choose to keep you incommunicado a lot of times. And we keep looking for you to no avail until when they are satisfied that they should release you. And I'm sure that day means a lot, that we take stock of how we are positioning as a country, but as a people in Uganda. If you ask anyone that believes in that, they will tell you that we really have a lot of work to do, and all of us making humble contributions. I am very happy about lawyers who are quick to run to court to protect the wider public through public interest litigation cases. Sometimes you may not even win, but the platform can be used to bring out those key salient issues that pertain to our livelihoods and our rights as human beings. Journalists have been at the center of the heat for a couple of years now. We witnessed the very violent 2021 elections. Journalists were severely targeted. Many of them, senior journalists, Alan will tell you, have since run away from covering elections. They say we cannot be treated in such a humane and degrading way, yet we are professionals. And so media houses have had to look for other people to go and do the same work that the senior colleagues used to do. Progressively, you'd think it is okay to empower everyone, but shouldn't be done in such a way that people just get scared and run away. What do we have left if also these ones are going to run away later? We are still alive to the fact that journalists in the Kawempe North by-elections were a central target, and we're still running around for justice for them. It was deliberate attack, not mistaken identities, but every journalist, every person that seemed to look like a journalist was a target. In the same vein, you remember in 2021 when journalists were equally targeted when they went to cover Bobi Wine taking his petition to the UN Office of human rights. They're still grappling with injuries to date. You remember a situation where Jimmy Akena, one of the most renowned journalists in this country, was beaten to near death, and today is somewhere in Gulu trying to make a living from doing petty things. And his career was cut short because of such violence. You know that some members of the NUP today are in prison on allegations of having stolen gadgets and so much, the Sebufus, the Edimutways, and many of them. As a media rights organization, we came out and handled that matter, we thought decisively. We talked to the said victims, we talked to the party, NUP, to take up responsibility, but before it all, the case took a different twist. And that is why, through our colleagues, the leadership in Massacre came out and we said we are not part and parcel of that, because that's not what we were pursuing as a media rights organization. We know of journalists that have been targeted and have left the country unceremoniously. Before they used to run to Kenya, we used to have safe havens until they felt very unsafe and now running elsewhere. Not because they have committed heinous crimes, but because they have done their work, and this time professionally. Because journalists do not have to be loved or liked in order to be able to do their work. They just have to observe the ethical requirements of doing their work. Precisely that. But that sometimes has been a problem to those independent and critical media houses and journalists. We are fresh to the news of break-ins, several break-ins at the Observer. And the paper has been since crippled now because severally it's been broken into by people seeking to cripple it, not take away things that will make them richer. Because they don't take the whole gadgets, they only pluck out information-related equipment, disorganize the whole setup, and disappear. And everybody will tell you, including Alan, that the Observer has been one of the most detailed newspapers that you can look out for if you needed to read about anything they work on. It is almost no more. We are trying to make it breathe again. We don't know how far we can go in terms of breathing new life into it. And normally journalists are looked at as the eyes and the ears of the public. Not that we have several eyes, not that we have many ears, but because we go to those spaces that many will not dare to. In the interest of fishing out the most important, valuable thing, which is information, very key in our day-to-day decision makings. And that work has come with a lot of challenges, especially around such times of elections. And we have had to train journalists in how to arm up their bodies. Instead of arming them now with pens, notebooks, microphones, you have to prepare them for live shootings. It's not an easy decision for any editor or manager to send their own to such a terrain in the name of going to work, in the name of a deployment. That's why you saw many media houses go back to get out their own from Kawempe when things got so bad. We record all the journalists and sat in newsrooms. And that situation hasn't been addressed. Surprisingly, those that are charged with this role find fault on the part of journalists, citing unprofessionalism, citing political interferences. But the people that make such statements are not professionals in regulating media, because a baton never regulates media. Tear gas is not a regulator for media. It is the regulatory bodies that must be charged with that role. But many times they come in at the tail end to justify what has already been done, legitimize, because media houses have been ransacked, because a certain politician is going in the studios without any authorization from the regulators of media. People are blacked out from studios, microphones are broken, and so much happens. But the regulators will come to say, we got information this was about to happen, well knowing they didn't even have any prior information. So, as we talk about this fourth estate, which one minister said we assume powers that we do not have, that our mistake is to want to assume that we are as equal as the other three. And that is bringing us problems. So his question was, if you are one of us, you are the fourth estate, who funds you? Is it government? And nobody funds us from government, isn't it? So in that regard, I know that the media is on its own, if it is worth the salt of being a media house. And journalists and media houses today are learning to cope amid these very many challenges that have come to them because of doing the real work that a media house is supposed to do. One, to hold leaders accountable, to expose gross misuse of power and office, including corruption, abuse of human rights, or violation of human rights, and many such that happen in the course of the day. It's not their own making. They only come to report about such, and so they become a target. We assume that the media takes no sides. That's what we assume, because we are still a young democracy. In developed societies, media houses take sides. They endorse candidates. They support them. You've seen it in those democracies. Ours, we assume that we are neutral. The media is neutral. But even that level of neutrality does not safeguard those media houses. So there are fundamental questions that we must all collectively answer. It was put to us, who protects the voters, and now who protects the media? The fourth estate. Is it on its own? If yes, where must it run to? We have certainly devised so many ways of trying to endear the media to the powers that be, in the political arena, in the security circles, and the general public. And there are so many activities that we have undertaken that point to that. Whether it has yielded or not is still another question. But where I'm coming from as a human rights defender, we believe in dialogue as our first resort. And our second is dialogue. Our third is dialogue. And our fourth is dialogue. The fifth one is non-defined. So what if all these four are exhausted? What else comes into play? We dialogue with those that are mandated to ensure a safe operating space for the media. Those that are enjoying to grow the media, not to stifle it, not to suffocate it. We dialogue with the different actors, because the media is not a standalone. It's a collective vehicle that drives a whole spectrum of rights of people, both in the political, in the economic, and the social arenas. And we're supposed to make them understand and appreciate the role of a media in a democracy, in mobilizing all of us And, many people, I think, don't understand it. Because if they did, how would they allow the men in uniform, who are trained differently, to be in charge of the media in the public spaces? How do they even determine that what you're doing is unprofessional and so subject you to that gruesome torture, beating? Like we saw some more recently when Sematimba was electrocuted. We went to hospital and the man wouldn't even understand what was happening around. He was admitted to a hospital, he just ended up going to his home. And then things all turned different for him. And there are many people like that. Unfortunately, the media is supposed to be objective and neutral during an election, but that has not been able to be done. We're monitoring how media house a reporter about the different candidates. And we know the key tenets of a powerful story that should come number one, number two, up to the last one, and those that cannot even find space in a competitive media. But people will have to mention a certain candidate first, and then mention NUP and others, irrespective of the gravity or the weight of the news story that has happened in the day. And that points to fear, self-censorship, and learning how to cope. How do I survive to see light next day? How do I retain my license and it's not revoked? How do I have it renewed upon expiry? So those key areas of challenge sometimes leave the media between a very hard place and a rock. But nonetheless, we still have a lot of hope because the media is becoming more assertive of late. They're asking the key questions of the day. They are collectively fighting back by taking cases to court, running to the police to report, even when sometimes cases never get investigated, but the records remain still, by documenting and having thorough and exhaustive reports pointing to the state in which they are working. That, for us, is a glimmer of hope. And we know for a fact that with time, people will understand us and invite us to work collectively in a very harmonious and peaceful environment. As of now, it's work in progress.
Thank you so much, Robert, my namesake, who left a the hope ahead in spite of the downfalls that you have highlighted. Of course, leave a lot to be desired. My heart went to Mr. Jimmy Akena, who you mentioned here, who, of course, we used to be a fan of for the stories that he always created for us. And in his serfdom, we really pray for his well-being, because these are people that we have at least gotten to know from the works that they do. And of course, we are hoping that the collective fight back, the being assertive, and finally the documentation for purposes of posterity can try to, of course, make a difference in what we are doing. The search for information as the fourth estate to be left alone continues, because it's work in progress. We are a young democracy, and of course we cannot run away from it. We must continue to have our voices heard, as well as have these discussions. The dialogue, and dialogue, which never ends. And Doctor asked, which you didn't hear, with who, is the question that we want to answer. I mean, if you're speaking to a person who is of no consequence, then maybe that's the reason we are struggling. But if we also first have to talk about the president before we talk about other people, then that is very, very selective. It leaves a lot to be desired. If the news is being made by a party president from another party, not necessarily the incumbent, why shouldn't we speak about that party and then the other comes after? I have often watched UBC News, and you can imagine how it goes. I will not say more than that, but that already shows a little bit of issues that have to be asked, those fundamental questions. The MOU that we signed here with the Uganda Law Society is in action. We are continuing to push for it. The tenets were really to fight for electoral justice, to fight for freedoms, and of course we have the same people here. The missive that was written by Doctor, we have her in the building. I'm sure the 5 billion pledge from the president to contribute towards the construction of the Uganda Law Society house that hasn't yet come might give you a glimpse of Doctor's answer. We don't know if she got a response to the missive, but we're here to listen in to her and also ask those key questions of the day that we are being pondering, we've been pondering over time. Human rights, as we have gotten to know and we want to continue to re-emphasize, is not a luxury. It is essential and they are inherent. We don't need to be begging for our human rights because they are provided for, and as has been said, we have now seen lawyers also being attacked, and we are saying, as the IBA rules keep saying, and the president of Uganda Law Society, Isaac Semakade K, senior counsel, has always been telling us for us to take heed and know that as a lawyer, your work is supposed to be done and ethically done, and you have to be seen to be working, and you are protected. The difference is how much can you stretch? And we are here to ask these questions and get encouragement from the senior lawyers who are in the building, who have, you know, removed their shoes and removed their gloves and gone out to fight for our rights. To answer the next question, of course, on the same topic, we're going to welcome our very own, who has been a friend and has associated with us for times that we can't count. Whenever called upon, she is readily available. She doesn't ask when, she asks what time. That is supposed to mean something, because on her fingertips are the fight for justice, and she has not ever held back her time, her opportunity to share and reach out. And of course that speaks into the character that we are going to be listening into, who is the founding partner and executive director for Center for Constitutional Governance, CCG, one of the stakeholders we've been speaking about, that we have to say, because also she's here and she has really fought to be identified, because she identifies. You know, you fight and you'll be fought for. She's worked as a public defender at the Public Defenders Association of Uganda, Kampala. She's a lawyer, of course, by profession, a human rights activist and a partner at Dickens Kamugisha and Company Advocates in Kampala, Uganda. She's a regular panelist on the national broadcaster UBC. She's going to tell us what happens there usually, that political talk show known as Uganda Broadcasting Corporation Behind the Headlines, as well as a Civic Space TV, a digital TV on Chat Show Uganda every Friday. She is a member of several boards of organizations, as well as the governing committees of schools and students' bodies. She also chairs national coalitions, including the National Coalition on Civic Space in Uganda, and she is the focal point person for the International Human Rights Defenders Group known as VUCA, Allies for Uganda. She has enriched knowledge and understanding of governance issues, especially in areas of constitutionalism, human rights, civic space, electoral democracy, land rights, research and advocacy, public interest litigation, as well as conflict transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Dr. Sarah Birete.
Thank you very much, the Radical New Bar and the Uganda Law Society for hosting us today. Fellow panelists, Good afternoon. From the time we heard from Marek, I think I've been crying. Not that it's the first story, and Marek, we are sorry you had to go through that. Not that it's a first or new story. I attended the human rights exhibition in Nairobi, where all politically associated victims of torture were present. I saw the Uganda I never knew in that exhibition, and I know after that we were under constant harassment by the state on why we had to go to Nairobi for that joint exhibition by then FDC, National Unity Platform, hosted by the Human Rights Commission of Kenya, the NGO. At times you don't know which country we are living in, whether you are in the middle of Gaza, whether you are in the middle of former Kosovo, Somalia. At times it's difficult to tell. Imagine what he went through in a space of about 2 or 3 days. Things I'm sure he would never have imagined that he would go through, especially as an advocate, where you think you are a defender of other people. You are a defender of society. And then you find yourself in that dungeon. And we are all potential victims of that. Everybody. You look at stories of the basement, teaching Runyankore. Unfortunately, a language that happens to be, the mother language for some of us. What kind of nation are we going to hand over to our children and grandchildren? I know many of the people who enjoy impunity don't think about such things. But if your grandchildren ask us 40 years from today, what shall we tell them? That what was our contribution as this was happening? I used to ask my father as a child on how they could let Idi Amin rule for 9 years. But here we are, stuck 40 years and still counting. When I tell my children that President Museveni came to power when I was in lower primary, they look at me as if I'm some kind of, maybe it's a mental problem. But I was 9 years old. And here we are. Many of you were not even born. Here we are, stuck in the middle of this desert, democratic desert called Uganda. How do we get ourselves out? When you look at the character, the character of the democratic citizenship of a Ugandan, how do we define it? Who protects a voter? Who protects an ordinary citizen? Because some of these abuses go beyond the electoral period. They go beyond the electioneering. The enforced disappearances in Noop have been continuous since 2020. And Uganda Law Society, a continuous abuse of rights of a particular group of people, according to Article 7 of the Rome Statute, is defined as crimes against humanity. I've been asking your president, why don't you send a reference to the ICC on continuous enforced disappearances for now 5 years and we are still counting? The Rome Statute is very clear. We are a signatory. When you look at the state of the rule of law, of course, in the country, where the Law Society is a custodian and the eyes of the public, the recent World Justice Project ranked us 121 out of 142 in terms of rule of law. That's our score. Well explained in that report, the Rule of Law Index. When you check the civic space, the Civicus Monitor, which reports about civic space globally, released the latest report early this year, and Uganda is ranked as regressed in that report. When you check the latest democracy index by the International Democracy and Engagement Assistance IDEA, we are ranked as authoritarian. When you check the Freedom Index by Freedom House, we are ranked as not free. These are global reports. But we know what we go through, and Malik has summarized what many Ugandans are going through in this country. Sometimes you don't need to read these reports. We know what we are experiencing as citizens. We know what we are witnessing. And the question remains, what do we do? What can we do that we haven't done? The elephant in the room is the conflict regarding the role of the army and the role of police in going about their work, and of course the civil-military relations in the country. Article 209B is very clear. Article 209 is about the functions of the army. It states very clearly that the army can engage or act or collaborate with other civilian agencies in situations of disaster and emergency. When you go to Article 212D, it says that the police can work and collaborate with other civilian agencies in doing their work. Is the army a civilian agency? No. Does the Constitution, therefore, guide in what circumstances the army can engage in civilian duties, disaster, and emergency? Continuously, the police in this country have made it a habit to hide behind the Constitution in surrendering their duties to the army and surrendering civilians for the slaughter of the army. The army, which is largely partisan, unfortunately, treats opposition, treats media, treats human rights defenders as enemies of the state. And then you have the police in abuse of the Constitution, hiding behind these two articles. I want to invite the Law Society to help us resolve this controversy. Under what circumstances should we be seeing the army on our streets? And if the radical new bar cannot help resolve this controversy, which is at the heart of rule of law matters in this country, then there will be no radicalness in this bar that we love so much. Then we shall not be back on track until we define how the army interacts with citizens of this country. Look at the ugly events in Guru. I've been telling people, because I come from the cattle keeping region, that there is no cattle owner that can subject his cattle to the whipping of civilians we saw in Gulu. Cattle, cows are no longer beaten. But the army, using, that stick for keeping cattle, for herding cattle, descends on people, members of the opposition, in broad daylight, beat them on camera, and business goes on as usual. As if we are a normal country. We have been traumatized enough that it's easy to move on. I don't know whether hoping tomorrow will be better or worse, but we all forget the things and move on. How can it be? How shall we get back on track? My sister, how shall we be back on track without resolving the controversy of the army, the impunity of the army in this country? Of course, we have other irregularities that have happened. Blocking rallies, I think in 5 districts now. That level of impunity, that you can close a highway, stop a presidential campaign from going to campaign in a gazetted district. That you can close a candidate to sleep on the road or spend 5+ hours on the road. During 2021 elections, Electoral Commission was hiding behind COVID, hiding their incompetence behind COVID. But there is no COVID now. I don't know what excuse Justice Byabakama will invent in his incompetence. Of course, we shall not forget his illegal pronouncement that voters cannot stay at a polling station. Also threatening the rights of voters, inviting the army to beat them, and he did say that they would be harvested like grasshoppers. A chair of Electoral Commission. If we were a serious country, he would not be holding that office. But of course we are not. What are the principles that can promote democracy in any country? The first one, of course, is rule of law. Ours is contested, constrained. It only favors the rich. Independent institutions, of course, we are paying the price for the life presidency and total state capture in the country. Active citizenry. I don't think we have even 3% of active citizens in this country. Because if we did, this impunity would not be happening. And of course, then free and fair elections and transparency and accountability. When it comes to matters elections, I want to give another challenge to the Uganda Law Society, and that does not include us. It's not that we think you should do everything. We are also here and we can partner. Can we help this country define what an election is and put it in law? I know that we have enough laws really to conduct a normal, free and fair election, as much as we need more reforms, but laws are not self-implementing. Even the few laws that we have, nobody's implementing them. So I don't think that even the campaign for reforms is what we need in this country. Can we first make sure that laws are respected and implemented? So we need as a country to define what an election should be and what are the minimum standards of an election. Failure of which, then that exercise should not be called an election. And if we can achieve this, like this exercise Justice Byabakama is presiding over, is an arete. Why do I call it an arete? And I want to give two examples of what previous chairs of Electoral Commission have done. The first one, Justice Chairman Akabwai, Stephen. When the army interfered with elections in Guru, campaigning for Honorable Betu Gombe against Norbert Mao, Justice Akabwai wrote the first warning that the army must have no role in elections. They ignored it. He sent his deputy, who was then Haj Aziz Kasuja, on the ground. Once Aziz Kasuja came with a report, he stopped that election. After further assessment, he declared Norbert Mao the winner. They didn't go to voting. When Aziz Kasuja later becomes the chair, a by-election in Urukunjiri, and the army interferes at the beginning of reform agenda. He writes to the president, withdraw the army or I cancel elections. And the army was withdrawn. But here we are with a justice of constitutional court that cannot exercise his powers to deliver a credible election in Uganda. So we need to define minimum standards for an election so that when the army comes in and beats people in Gulu, that whole exercise is nullified. And if time runs out, then the current president leaves office and the vice president takes over, like the Constitution provides. We need to move to that level to deal with the impunity of the army in our elections, to deal with characters who vulgarize democracy in this country. We need also, and this is my third recommendation as I conclude, we need also, led by the Radical Nuba, to drag the IGP to court to explain under what circumstances does he invite the army to torture Ugandans in the day-to-day policing that is his duties in the Constitution. Under what circumstances does he hand over his work to the army? And who is accountable for the violations of the army against Ugandans pretending to be doing law and order work that belongs to the police? I thank you very much.
Very vocal, very biting, very direct, very unfiltered, and not caring what else anyone else thinks, because that is the role of such an individual, very respected and assertive. Thank you so much, Doctor, for the very deep discussion. Very short, but entailing. We appreciate that. We really appreciate. This is not the first time. You've always put us to task. You've always asked us to do the things that you know within the power we have, we can do. And we continue to receive the challenge. You have left us with so much to do. The two questions that you've asked are very critical. The role of the army, citing the articles in the Constitution 209, vis-a-vis 212, which of course also puts the police into question of how to collaborate and whether the army is a civilian agency. And of course, the history of painted of Idi Amin, the late, may his soul rest in peace, of 9 years, of course, leaves us wondering, because of course, as we are, some of us began with the president of Uganda as the president himself, and that answer is, that's a question we've been answering from primary one, who is the president of Uganda? And I won't say my age, but clearly 40 years down the road, we are still answering the same question. And you said it's counting easily. Yes, we are counting, and we are stuck. We are stuck in a trench, and we wonder how to come out. The answers lie in the continued fight, the continued rule of law pursuance, and the continued questions being asked, especially given that these departments are hiding behind the Constitution. Is the Constitution weak? Is it that we cannot use the Constitution anymore to advance the rule of law? The principles that you have identified of formidable democracy, rule of law, independent institutions, active citizenry, free and fair elections, and finally transparency and accountability are principles that we are all aware of, but we have failed to collect ourselves as a people, as a responsible citizenry that can come together and show that numbers will speak more than authority. Woo upon the Electoral Commission chairperson from what you've said. Of course, the stories you've shared as compared to the previous chairpersons, Stephen Akabwai, a very, very formidable citizen who took the stand against the state and dared them. Those warnings we have never had. We only had a statement from the Electoral Commission earlier on, I think last week, but we're asking whether that is all that can be done. We need to see them biting. We've had challenges. Of course, we also mentioned about Aziz Kasuja, the former chairperson, who also warned and took a stand. We want to use this opportunity to receive the challenge as the Uganda Law Society, the radical new bar. Hence, we shall not be radical, as has been said. Can we get the country back on track as the country has expected, with the excitement that the radical new bar governing council was elected into power? We are not going to let you down. Doctor, we are going to deliver the message. We are aware that the members online are also attentive, receiving the challenge. This is a clarion call, like has been said. It is our role to collect the members of the bar together and fight for what is right, including going to court to ask these questions, these public interest litigation matters about the police boss, that is the boss of police, who is giving out his work to the army. We have those questions to answer. We use these opportunities to get back to the drawing board and organize ourselves to enter either into partnerships or spearhead the fight to answer those questions. Ladies and gentlemen, would like to give a round of applause to the panelists who have come to the end of the presentations. They have been very striking, very biting, starting from the experience of Malik to Jonathan, who made his remarks, which of course also left a lot to be desired. I want to also believe he as well mentioned about the Uganda Law Society. Clearly we are in the limelight, a lot is expected from us, and the Uganda Law Society can't do it without the members. So members, we are calling upon everybody that is able and willing to offer a service, to lend a hand, so that we don't have to be left isolated as an organization. Dr. and Robert have asked that we join them in fight for the rule of law, because we can't do it alone, clearly. We can't be in Gulu, we can't be in Karamoja, we can't be in Ankole, we can't be in Arua all at the same time. But with partnerships that we have continually been in the habit of making, we're able to appreciate what is happening where an organization is best, where they have data, where they have information to share with us, and we are able to rally. But we want to rally the members of the bar. That is you, council, that is listening out there and to us. Kindly come out. Feel free to reach out to the society. Feel free to reach out to the organizations that are next to you. It's okay to be a focal person so as we can interact with you using the organization that you're partnering with. We have lawyers out there that are working with these organizations, and they're still members. So it is a welcome call to everybody to answer that question in order to appreciate and receive a democratic state that we all yearn for and look forward to having in order to practice our professions, especially, of course, the law, which is very interesting once given the right space and environment. Thank you so much once again. We've come to that time when we ask the questions and to the panelists, because it is them that have been speaking. It is our turn to ask the questions. We shall use the next few minutes to ask 1, 2, 3 questions, have some parting shots, and then close the day as has been explained. Yes, Mr. Mavidis, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Ukwago. Wedira nchima. Oba musigachi. Tamanyi siga mwava. Dr. Sarabirete, I think it's my first time to be near you. You blocked me on X, but now we are here. Mr. Jonathan, and Human Rights Network for Journalists. Thank you so much. I have just a few comments, then maybe you will pick from there. Mr. Lukwago Abdulmalik, I would say that what happened to you, but not so much. The other part, I want you to be firm, and I want you to read the decision. I think you have read it. Charles Onyango Andrew Mwenda versus Attorney General, Supreme Court. Supreme Court, is it appeal number 2 of 2002? That's the citation. Now you can read the judgment of Yamugisha, acting Justice of Supreme Court. She said, democracy has a price to pay. Democracy has a price to pay. So sometimes we must pay the price. And the person before you, I paid the price of 18-month imprisonment in maximum security prison upper. So as you are crying, just understand that between the prison of 18 months in upper and that wound, what would you serve? So sometimes you better treat your wound better and then you heal, and rather than going to upper prison. Jonathan knows what is happening there, at least from the clients. So we have to pay price, but this is not to encourage the people who do these human rights abuses, but to encourage us to be resilient to these abuses. When we remain resilient, it will reach a point when they can no longer do it and then just walk away. If we are resilient. When we remain resilient, you will find a UPDF officer torturing a person, then that officer will also be beaten by resilient citizens. You get the point? This is how our grandfathers here in Uganda kept their land from land grabbers. You see, when the 19 agreement gave out our land, these people came, they came there, we are landlords, what and what. So they said, I think we need to commit some simpler crimes to protect our land. They were being tortured. The landlord would come and he would be burned to death. The children would also run. By the time they come back, limitation would have caught up with them. So let's be resilient. That's what I told even the political prisoners in prison. Let's be resilient. And to that, I come to what, Doctor, you said, that active citizenry. That democracy thrives in active citizenry. And we said that Uganda doesn't have active citizenry. That's wrong. Citizens of Uganda have always been civically active, but they have been trampled upon, they have been tortured, they have been frustrated. You have a population which joined hands to remove Amin. Were they not active? You have a population which went to the bush 5 years, of course under someone who was pushing his ambition to remove what they termed as dictatorship. You have a population which fought a 20 years war in northern Uganda. You get the point? You have a population which had Lakwena. You have a population which has demonstrated here since 2005 when Museveni started wanting to remove term limits. People have been here. You have a population which has precedents challenging the. Now, what are they doing to them? They are doing what the Article 3 of the Constitution predicted. Article 3 predicts that the Constitution would be amended or overthrown or abrogated contrary to its what? Provisions. And it says, when that happens, you citizens, you have a duty at all times to protect this what? The purpose you put there a camera at your home is not because they are not thugs. You know they are thieves. But you have one assurance that when they come, I will see them. And when they run, I will identify them and arrest them. So we have been very active. And the rule of law you said about the first component, you said that it is working for the rich. No. It no longer works for the rich also. The rule of law works for some aspects work for the regime. If you read the Supreme Court Appeal number 1, Professor Kanyehamba quotes a Nigerian professor who said that in most African countries, the regimes just pick parts of the constitution to use it against the citizens. Like when they are beating Malik, they were saying, we are the army, we have the power. You get the point? Now they use Article 208 of the army to beat him. But they don't use the other article you said, which restrain them. As I conclude, it's the gentleman is Chekwech. I wish he would be here. The way he was talking badly about misinformation, disinformation. Chekwech, his predecessors in Daily Monitor, Andrew Mwenda and Charles Onyango, went to Constitutional Court. And they won in Supreme Court that misinformation and disinformation is a constitutional right. We have rights to misinform and disinform in a democracy. In the story which took them to court, they had said that Kabila had paid Museveni in gold. The state was saying that was not true. The Supreme Court said, in the democracy, you don't need to bring truth. After all, if doctor, you want a truth, can't you find the truth? But sometimes I want to be served with false news. Sometimes I need false news. That's why people are selling. So let's not be so rigid that people must bring out. Jurua, stop referring to Uganda as a young democracy. No. We are a republic which committed ourselves to democracy. And for this, I want you to spend a full night or 2, even a week, to read again Semo Gerere. No. And Charles Onyango. The Supreme Court talks about the universal standards. It says the democracy we adopted in 1995 is a universal democracy. There's nothing like Ugandan democracy. So how do you define a young democracy? A democracy is what? A democracy. Mr. Sempala, I asked this thing again to you yesterday to Mr. Wandelogalo. What do you want us to dialogue on? You said dialogue, third option, dialogue. You want us to dialogue on what? Whether Malik was tortured, whether Eddie Mutre was in the safe house in the basement learning Lunankole. So you people, civic society, you must also be streamlined on what you want. Comply with Article 3 tells you when the constitution is abrogated, when it's undermined, when the constitutional order is under threat, resist and do all in your power. But Sempala, and you have did it here. When they beat journalists, I've seen you. They beat journalists today. Tomorrow you organize a football match with the beaters. You said that the people who touch journalists, then you organize a match with them. Why are they not going again to beat them again? So let us be clear. Under Article 44, Dr. Sarah knows, and you also know, some rights are non-derogable. So torture, inhuman treatment. But for you are telling us you want to do what? To dialogue? Finally, I agree with Doctor that the military has nothing to do in elections. Maybe what you didn't do, these young people can read. You can read the decision of Besige, 2001, Besige Vice Museveni. It has about, I think, 4 letters. They were reproduced in verbatim from Dr. Haji Aziz Kasujja to Museveni and to the army commander, telling them what is happening by the military is illegal and you must take steps to ensure that the military stops interfering with what? Elections. So the Kasujja and the Kabwais of those days can never be here. That's why you have a Byabakama. A Byabakama with no integrity, a Byabakama with criminal cases in court, a Byabakama who refused to resign as a judge even when the constitution says he must resign. That's why you got Kasujja's term, I think it never expired. He sent him to Saudi Arabia. You get the point? Akabwai was just interim chairman, was never appointed. So he brought in puppets. The first puppet was Chigundu, and people clapped. Chigundu had lost an election in Lubaga division. He stood as, I think, was one on movement ticket. I think Erosion or what? But he had stood somewhere, and we knew that he was movement. Then he became a chairperson. Biavakama, when I tell you his history, he will sue me for defamation, but that's the truth. He has no integrity. So he cannot act. But what I can say, to thank you that it's good that these places remain here, but the citizens, especially the lawyers, when your parents paid for your fees, I don't think they paid for your fees to get rich. I don't think. I think our parents wanted a lawyer in the family. And what's the purpose of a lawyer in the family? To understand the law and provide legal leadership. Now, when you graduate, you make it a business. Only the little credit I give to him, every time we are in court, he tells the lawyers that you people, you are not traders. Law is not a trade. Law is a service. That's why they don't give you trade what? Licenses. But now, Jurua, how many advocates do you have on your roll? 7,000. Let him tell you, Electoral and others, how many advocates can stand out to defend the rule of law? Less than even 50. Why? They think they came to business. And that's where the things have died. That's why even Museveni has been able to confuse every one of us. So lawyers, do your role. Finally, I may forget, Doctor, you talked about ICC. That we should petition ICC over enforced disappearances. Now, ICC has a tricky provision. It's not tricky, but international law, it may be understandable. They say you exhaust your local remedies. You exhaust your internal legal remedies before you approach us. Now, the problem we are having, including your civic spaces and other places, you people are letting us down. You are not prosecuting these people. When a person sits in Hague and reads the Ugandan laws, say, okay, Magistrate Courts Act, any person can bring a criminal charge. Okay. Now, that's why I sympathize with Eroto. He has a legal department in NUP and other parties whose work is only bail. Basically, they arrest this one, you run. But a person sitting in Hague would say that in Uganda, you can actually open up criminal cases against these what? These guys. It's only when these courts fail to work on them, it's only when they frustrate those cases that ICC will receive your petition. Now, start waking up. If a military man tortures, open a criminal case. Open it in Google. Don't mind about, you have a criminal case number. You get the point? It's okay for a magistrate to play around with it. Let him play around with it. They say, I have withdrawn it. Because even a knowledge by DPP is evidence in ICC that Uganda can never prosecute these what? These people. When we tried to take it in Gulu, for example, up to now, do you know that you have never opened any criminal case against Erosion in Kasese? Yet every civic activist says, Erosion. So what are you charging him? So you cannot go to ICC unless we organize here and make sure that every torture, and remember, you have a country which has a law saying that human rights violations are personal liability. You get the point? Now they ask you, they beat you in 2021. Eroto, how many criminal prosecutions do you have in 2021 violations? Do you have any? But you know them. Mwesigwa, now the Kosimani operations. You know their names. So without charging them, ICC will never receive us, doctor. So let us reorganize and see how better you can do. Thank you so much, Jurua.
Hard truths being spoken, questions being asked, answers being searched for. That is the Radical New Bar. Thank you, Mr. Mavirizi, who is also a friend of ours and is also very interested in these questions. Of course, he has asked questions that have cut across. We're going to pick them up from there, but we're also going to ask that they be taken in tandem with the ones we have so that you can run through them. I got questions for each one. There's one for Doctor. It's a long one from David. Thank you so much for reaching out. He is making some statements, and I want to hope that you can pick the question out. Is a benevolent dictator possible? As in courts, and could it ever be a preferable form of government to a weak or corrupt democracy? What motivates ordinary people to support a dictator, even when facing significant repression or hardship? How can the international community effectively intervene in a brutal dictatorship without causing further violence or destabilizing the country? Is it ever justifiable to use violent revolution or to overthrow a dictatorship, or are non-violent struggles always preferable? Quite far-reaching. I hope they are clear. Is it okay, ma'am? Thank you. I got a question from Okello Alan, which is also going back to you, Doctor. Like a hot seat. Just bear with us. Thank you, Okello Alan, for reaching out. What practical safeguards must institutions activate to ensure that citizens enjoy full civic rights during elections? What practical safeguards must institutions activate to ensure that citizens enjoy full civic rights during elections? Thank you so much. Ms. Kabarebe Viola asks Robert. She asks, how can Uganda guarantee freedom of expression both offline and online without compromising national security? How can Uganda guarantee freedom of expression both offline and online without compromising national security? And also, what do the 2025 trends indicate regarding risks faced by journalists during electoral cycles? What do the 2025 trends indicate regarding risks faced by journalists during the electoral cycle? Jonathan, there is one Scato Silva. Thank you so much. We continue thanking you and asking you to come through with your questions. The question is, what immediate institutional reforms or legal interventions are necessary before February 2026? So it's quite a tricky question. What immediate institutional reforms or legal interventions are necessary before February 2026? And finally, for Malik, they're asking, what would justice or redress look like for you and for others in similar situations? Miss Akiteng Mariam. Miss Akiteng Mariam, thank you so much. Malik, what would justice or redress look like for you and for others in similar situations? Kindly proceed with answering the questions. We'll begin with Doctor. The microphone before you can be activated using a button. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much. And my online friend, Mavidis, I didn't know we had never met.
Only at the Ugandan Society do these things happen.
Yeah, I know. I thought from the time, you became active on public interest litigation, I thought we had met, but it's nice to meet you. On your comments on active citizenry, to some extent I agree with you, but the questions I pose, how come we are not able to enforce Article 3 if we have active citizenry? 2, how come we don't behave like our neighbors in Kenya? So maybe that's the active citizenry I would love to see. We can say to some extent we have, but of course that's why me and you are here. We are active citizens. I regard myself as an active citizen. I regard the Radical New Bar as active citizens. But how many are we, and how come we watched on to have a life presidency against the constitution that we had made as a country? Term limits are removed, age limit is removed, parliament has collapsed now to the ground, the speaker is an MC on rallies, when her office requires her to be impartial and neutral, then where are these active citizens? So, to some extent, we have some active citizens, but we don't have the required active citizenry to protect democracy in this country. So we need to do more and recruit more people to this side of ours. So when you look at the rule of law works for the regime, and I agree with you, we have rule by law, but let's also look beyond political cases. Let's look at citizens. Which type of citizens are able to access justice? You can look at even how the cases are tracked. Let's take the Mole Katanga case. 2 years, we shall soon have a judgment. How many people are languishing on remand for more than 30 years and they don't have justice? Remand becomes a punishment in itself. Those are the poor people I'm talking about. People who run illegal aid clinics know the numbers of people that cannot access justice in this country. The latest report, I think, puts the number of people who can access justice at 10%. Then what happens to the 90%? So that's the issue I'm talking about when I say it's for the rich, it's for people with means. If it's for, as compared to the people without means, if you cannot afford prominent lawyers, if you cannot even afford a lawyer at all, what are the chances that you can access justice in this country? So that's the parameter I was using, and I think we agree on both ends. The law works for the regime, rule by law, but also for ordinary people in non-political cases. Justice is for the rich. When your case of Besija, it's a reference and it's a good one, 201. It was a very good case. And I want now to respond to Okello and David. David asks questions of like, how can we get out of, the context we are in? Is a benevolent dictator better? Why do we need a dictator at all? I am a democracy activist. I don't want to associate with any form of dictatorship. I know many theories have come up saying this democracy cannot work for us, it's imported, we need to change it. I don't associate with those views. If you go back to our traditional society, for example, kingdom setup, there were 3 arms of government in a kingdom setup. You had the Ruchiko, which was the parliament, you had the court, and you had the executive with the cabinet. What is different is just the name. I don't know what kind of democracy. Democracy stands for basically 3 things: representation, accountability, and then people making a choice. So what kind of, if we fail on the 3 basics, how can we blame a system? How come this very democracy is working for other countries? At the time Obote one government released the Common Man's Charter that was copied by Singapore. We were at the same level. Singapore, if you read that big volume of how Lee Kuan Yew moved Singapore from 3rd world to 1st world, we were the same country. They used the same kind of democracy. How come for them they are able to develop? How come countries like Ghana are able to develop? How come Botswana is going into a 1st world country? They use the same kind of democracy. So how come then us, we keep blaming colonialists and the system of representation that we have, thinking it's the problem, and we fail to blame leadership? Our problem is leadership. It's not the democracy that we practice. The universality of standards, Mabel talked about it. Democracy is universal. So how come for us we keep blaming universal principles and we think that's our problem? So David, international community cannot help us We need first help ourselves. And since I'm talking to the land friends out there, the law society, help us redeem Parliament as a temple of democracy. Let's have, through the Radical New Band Vision 2060, let's have 200 lawyers as MPs, and we see if they will also destroy our constitution, if they will also amend laws after bribery, like we saw the UPDF Amendment Act, 100 million bribery. We see if they will also pass bogus supplementary budgets after bribery, and then we know our society cannot be redeemed. So this is the challenge. Vision 2060 Radical New Bar. Send 200 lawyers to Parliament. Let them rework our laws. Let them reset our democratic clock as a country. And I think for me, our solution lies through redeeming the temple of democracy, which is Parliament. Parliament can enforce checks and balances. Parliament can make sure the judiciary that Radical New Bar is trying to reform on the sidelines. You can reform it better by taking up Parliament, because judiciary is accountable to the temple of democracy known as Parliament, which has completely collapsed under state capture and incompetent leadership. When you go to the question of Okello, what are the practical safeguards? The safeguards are known. Rule of law will protect the fundamental rights and freedoms of the people. Our constitution is clear, chapter 4, article 50, that we use for public interest litigation. The problem is that we have no enforcers of our laws. We have no protection for rule of law. And that's why I'm inviting the Uganda Law Society, 2031, take up Parliament, take it over, and reset our democratic clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Jonathan, you can go forth.
Yes, thank you. I think firstly I need to say that in answer to what Mabilize has said, I know there are certain shortfalls. We have shortfalls. However, these shortfalls, of course, are not our own making. Most of our supporters are either languishing in jail or answering to charges that are politically motivated. However, as the National Unity Platform, we're willing to move on with someone, with anyone. This also includes the Uganda Law Society. We can challenge all this. We can take this on head on. So I believe after this, we can even have a discussion and see, even as early as next week, we can have something filed. We have no problem with having these matters taken to court. Our issue is that we're bogged down.
Yes.
That is why I was saying we needed more lawyers to get interested in this, because injustice that is happening to NUP today, tomorrow it can happen to any of us. Malik, who is an advocate, was beaten up. So that means even advocates were actually not safe.
No.
No one is safe. So that is why I am willing with the Uganda Law Society. If you are unable to, we shall file. On the question of institutional reform, I think the law is clear. Article 61, the Electoral Commission has a duty to manage this election. If the Electoral Commission is unable to manage the election, then they should tell us. They should tell us. Biabakama should tell us he's unable to manage this election. Because I have heard that previous chairpersons of the Electoral Commission have written letters, have insisted that the military should not be part of elections.
Yeah.
They have insisted on these things. So if Mr. Biabakama is unable to do what he's supposed to do, tell us and resign. Let another person be appointed to that position. So the first institutional reform is for an overhaul of the Electoral Commission itself. Secondly, we do not want to see amen in our election. We do not want to see police officers stopping our candidates from campaigning. I believe with that, I have answered that small question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Robert.
Thank you very much. Kulumale Mabirizi. Of course, we feel your pain when we talk dialogue. We know that it can be a multi-pronged approach. Some people may do what Mabirizi is exactly talking about here. And even within us, others are doing the same. And this is not to rule out the legitimacy of such efforts. Not at all. I talked of the 50th one. And which is unknown.
Find X.
And so find the missing link or find X.
Yes.
Find X. By the time after finding that X, you will know that I have an answer for you.
Yeah.
Of course, my sister, Kaverera Viola, you cannot have constitutional guarantees for freedom of expression amidst blatant violations of this nature. I cannot give you guarantees. We can work towards a safe and secure operating environment, and that is all we must do, all of us, because we do not get what we deserve. We get what we bargain for in such a society. So we must bargain for as much as we can. And this can't be work for the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda alone. It's for the wider civil society, it's for all Ugandans, it's for all right-thinking members of society to join the fly and say we need better and we can work towards that. You say without compromising security. I do not know how we can do this without compromising security, because security remains undefined. Literally everything has been securitized. When you speak, somebody will allude to security. When you want to assemble, somebody will allude to security. So literally you have to demystify this thing called security and break it down to simplest levels where we can be able to comprehend it. As it is now, it's not clear to many Ugandans. Then trends, what is happening and the trends and what it points to during elections and going forward, it is a very risky operating environment for those that are involved, but also for those that are waiting on the other end to consume the products of the journalists, the information. They are blocked out. And recently I saw the Lemonta saying that evil thrives in darkness, and they were chained with wires and they couldn't breathe. And I'm sure that best explains everything in here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, Malik.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Mabirizi, thank you for your deep sympathies towards me. Before the question that you posed, Mr. Alan had posed a question, and it was what motivated the torture and the abduction. To answer this, I would like to point it out that I've ever worked at Judicial Service Commission. So at Judicial Service Commission, I was handling a lot of sensitive information. So while I was being taken in that track, I thought of it. And what was coming in my mind was, maybe someone big out there is trying to follow me up. But then, also I remembered that Noop had invited me to do vetting for them in Masaka. But that's the only thing I did for them. I didn't go back for anything. It was only vetting. And it was the Secretary General that called me. So I thought of that. And to my thinking, somehow I think maybe someone was following me up. Because even while I was in Masaka, I was receiving phone calls. I don't know how these people got my number, but people were calling me. Now, to answer the question that you posed, what will justice or redress look like for me and others? Justice to me would mean taking on the offenders, those officers. At least I know them by name and I know where they work from. So I'm looking at taking them on. I tried, immediately I came out, I tried reporting the loss of my belongings. But no police station could take on that case. They were just dismissing it, telling me, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. I went to Kanyanya, I went to Kawempe, still went to Old Kampala. Nothing they could do. When you're talking about having justice, I engaged the VP and myself, and we discussed about having a public interest litigation. He seconded it, and I think we are going to be following it up and having it going. But I think I'm going to just go to all courts that I can go to have these officers brought to book. On top of what these officers did, on the evening of the 29th, I approached Old Kampala police station. OC Station Liga made some threats. He told me that they know where I stay, they know everything about me, and he has orders from above. Then he told me he's ready to shoot me. So I'm just wondering, why would he shoot me? What have I done? I haven't done anything, but I was tortured, and here I am. I'm scared of my life, that's for sure. I was warned before coming here, but still I had to come. To remind you, I do not stay at home. Nowadays, I stay with my colleague there, but I do not go back home up to now, from the time they released me. Yeah, that's that. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. The bewilderment, the uncertainty, the aspects that have been discussed here, the answers we have gotten from the panelists. Leadership is actually not the democracy is not the problem. It's really the leadership. The big call for lawyers to storm the parliament, the temple of democracy, is and bang the tables from parliament. Dear lawyers, the time will come. It's not so far. We are all eligible. We are going to accept the challenge. This information obviously is before the governing council. I'm sure they are watching us. We received the challenge and we are going to do what is required. Speak out and be heard as we work towards a safe and secure environment, and hoping, as we pray for institutional reforms, the Electoral Commission will be triggered enough to do the right thing. And it is now the time that we want to appreciate our distinguished panelists who have given us a lot of insight and information. Could you please just clap for them and thank them for their presence? Our partners across the government and civil society and the media and the political parties and generally the ULS members whose voice and vigilance has of course helped us along and kept us for these 12 months ever since we began these sessions. We cannot thank you more. We want to continue to ask that the Lord will bless you in everything that you're doing, and we continue to collaborate together. We, as the Radical New Bar, especially the Department of Rule of Law that has been behind the preparation of these sessions, are forever grateful to you, especially the panelists, the members, as I've already said, the Uganda Law Society Governing Council, obviously, and we are very open to constructive feedback. We would like to know how better to make these sessions to be more attractive and more engaging, such that we can build that democracy that we are looking towards. We want to be more impactful, more inclusive, and more responsive in the coming year. We are not going to stop at this. We would like, of course, also to, in a very special way, wish you very, very glorious and glamorous festivities. We would like to ask that you have a joyous new year, and as we get into the new year, we would like to pray that we be safe towards the 2026 elections, which are slated for the 15th day of January, but of course there's going to be a lot happening between that time. We continue to remind us that the Uganda Law Society hotline is open, and if you're experiencing any challenges as far as these things we have been talking about are concerned, kindly reach out. Like we said, the NUP and all the other parties require our assistance. We are not a trade. Like it has been said, we are not practicing a trade. Let us be reminded that we are here to offer a service, and our reward, of course, is going to be in the democracy that we long to see in order to practice our profession easily and without any fears. With this, we would like to conclude the session for the day. This has been our 47th edition of the sessions. We have delivered 47 editions. It has been very, very engaging. We would like to thank you all for the support. We would like to, in a very special way, appreciate Madam Afra Apio for leading the cause as the head of department. She has worked tirelessly to bring these 47 editions to forefront. Miss Gwenny Patience, who is not here, she's on leave, she's not available, but in your endeavors, thank you so much for the aspects and the efforts that you've put forth. Myself, Robert Jirua, I'm grateful for the opportunity and the privilege to have served in various capacities, especially, of course, as the moderator for these functions. It has been an honor. I am forever grateful for the feedback, forever grateful for the opportunity, and I pray that the Lord will see us all through 2025 so as to come through next year, upon which we shall communicate accordingly on how the next sessions are going to go. Let us continue to defend the rule of law, because it is the cornerstone of a democracy. In the coming elections, make sure you speak. If it means the protest vote, as has been said, please go out and vote. Do not judge. Let us give the opportunity at the ballot, because that is the best way that we can be heard to be speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me close this session and wish you the very best going forward. Thank you so much, and God bless you.